Hi there, welcome to this webinar on composable commerce with Sitecore, a demo of a composable commerce storefront using Sitecore technology. A little something about me, the presenter. My name is Roland Willemoes. I'm a CTO for Alpha Solutions here in the US. Let's take a brief look at the agenda. Starting off with a quick definition of composable commerce and composability in general, making sure we start the presentation being on the same page, so to speak. Next up, a look into what roles is needed to build up a commerce storefront. Then the main part of the presentation, a demo where we'll walk you through some highly relevant use cases showing what role each of these composable components play in that given use case. This is spanned through a checkout flow, abandoned cart, and subscriptions, and so on. And finally, I'll be taking some questions. So what is composable commerce? Actually, before I get into that, I want to take a step back and look at composability in general first. So composability or composable is just so much more than just technology. First, we have composable thinking. That is based on the idea that anything is basically composable. That composable thinking enables a more flexible, responsive way to address changing customer needs. It stresses a 100% open sharing of information, seeking information inside and outside the organization. Things such as using ideas for employees, competitors, registering customer experiences from help desk, user testing, being proactive in any way is possible. Secondly, we have composable business architecture. This is more about the organization as such, and it's about creating a flexibility in your organization. This includes three dimensions, namely engagement, technology, and capability. Note that composable business architecture is an addition and not a replacement for your current business architecture. It's a way of visualize and identify needed changes in your organization so you can move faster and capitalize on various digital business initiatives. So it's not a business model, but rather it assists your company in preparing a model that supports a digital acceleration. Finally, we have our composable technology. So it's about providing agility and flexibility. It encourages reusability, augmented connectivity, and transparency across your company. And it, of course, leverages composable technologies. So in this context, the word composable is derived from the idea that open and best-of-breed enterprise technology should comprise your ecosystem, giving you the agility to run your business faster. Now let's get back to our composable commerce storefront. Now the good part of this is that we don't really need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to architecture guidelines. It's already done for us. It's called MARC. So let's talk a bit about MARC architecture. This acronym stands for microservice-based, API-first, cloud-native, and headless. So as an example, if your company want to do an e-commerce storefront, MARC architecture advocates that the company builds a solution choosing or building the right PIM, DAM, storefront, email marketing, and so on and so forth, each of which is a microservice hosted in the cloud. The core benefits of this approach are: each module is independently evaluated and meets your business requirements for that module. Each module is independently managed, upgraded, and maintained. Each module supports open standards and is API-based communication. Each module is replaceable, and each module is independently scalable. The company can, based on that, pick and choose each of these small little black boxes or Lego bricks and build a system that fits specifically the company's requirements. So what roles is actually needed? When I say role or component, in this context, I mean a building block that is responsible for a specific piece of functionality. As an example, that could be, before mentioned, email functionality, payment provider, commerce engine, and so on and so forth. So what roles is needed? Well, I hate to say it, but it's the classical answer. It depends. What roles is needed is obviously depending on what business case you're trying to solve. But for a standard e-commerce storefront, there are several components that can be considered. The basics would probably be this: a commerce engine. It could be a commerce engine such as Sycor's Order Cloud. It's an API-first headless e-commerce system that's designed to build both B2B and B2C and marketplaces, so on and so forth. You also need a storefront UI. For our demo, we have chosen to use an open source based on, you might get a hint from the name, React and Next.js. It's plugin and connector based and has connectors to all kind of different commerce engines. We built a connector for Sycor Order Cloud, and it also comes with a bunch of pre-built components. Then you also need a payment provider, obviously, since it's e-commerce. We have chosen to use Stripe. It's crazy simple to use, but there's a lot of good options out there and a lot of good payment providers. Then you need a tax calculation service. It could be one like Avalara, which is pretty heavily used, but there's a lot of options too. Then you need email and text campaign service for your abandoned carts, transactional emails, thank you for signing in, and thank you for getting an account, and order confirmation, and so on and so forth. We have chosen to use Moosend, which is also a Sycor product, and further on we can switch to the new one coming from Sycor called Sycor Send, based on the same technology. Now let's get on with our demos and use cases. So before we do that, I want to show you some examples on how communication works in this composable setup. As you can see on the left side, I have the browser or client shown here as a mobile phone with the website running. And in the middle here, I have React Storefront, our storefront code and backend code, basically running on Next.js and React, and is hosted on Vercel. On the right side over here, I have Order Cloud, CDP, XM Cloud for our CMS, Sycor Moosend. We have our Alpha subscriptions, which is a subscription module that we built, which also fits into this architecture. We have Avalara, and we have our payment provider Stripe. So an example of how communication could work would be directly from the client, that we need information from Order Cloud, and that happens directly in the client's browser using JS and so on and so forth. It could also send information and send events to CDP. You actually do that. You will see that in our demo. Then there's also the option that before a page gets rendered and sent to our client, that server side in React Storefront running Next.js, we actually need to pull some data from Order Cloud. Or we need to pull some information from our CMS, XM Cloud. Then there's something new, our middleware, or I could call it the glue. So each of these composable components, it's important that we don't mix them together, so they have to be totally separate, because the whole idea is that later on, say that I want to use another tax service than Avalara, I can do that, and Order Cloud shouldn't care. So when in this case, let's take an example. When a user submits an order into Order Cloud, there's an integration event in Order Cloud that we can set to call an external system. And that's what we do here. So the order gets submitted, and what would happen there, that is that it calls back to our middleware component. And this one is custom. At least you need some kind of orchestration. There's also no-code orchestration. We chose to make a lightweight middleware component here. And in this case, Order Cloud calls back. We call Avalara and get tax calculated. We also call Stripe to submit the payment, or authenticate it at least, authorize it. And then we also need to send an email with an order confirmation. All this happens independently. So each of these components doesn't really know about each other's existence, but only our middleware do that. So keep that in mind. That's the whole idea. So if you start mixing them together in these components, you get this kind of web where, they're all dependent and you cannot change your components as you move along. Working with e-commerce just gives you a lot of use cases to choose from. I've selected a few that I find central to running a commerce storefront, and also use cases that will showcase each component's role and value. First, we have a checkout flow. We have abandoned cart and transactional emails, a little bit of content management, and finally subscriptions with some discounts and coupons as well. Let's move on. So our first use case, the checkout flow, basically the core of any commerce storefront. So here we have our storefront, pretty basic, and let's try out to see how that works with the checkout flow. First as an anonymous user and then as a logged in known user. So here we have the categories. Let's pick some headphones on the left side. We have a filtering component. This is all powered by Zycor AutoCloud, but it could be any other commerce and search engine as well. Product detail page, we have a quantity selector we can add to cart. And continue cart. Shopping, storefront, let's go to the checkout flow. So here we have the cart page, calculated tax. It's happening there up in the top right corner. And you'll see there's a promotion for signing up as a subscription or auto ship, but you have to be logged in first. Let's fill out the shipping address and our credit card, which is a Stripe test credit card, so no need to write that down. And our zip code, and then we'll place the order. So this is the example. This is an example of a checkout flow where the user is anonymous, non-registered. There we go. And let's do it again where we first log in with a user I already previously created. Here we go. Just need to type the password. Back to the home page. Now let's go and add some products to the cart. This nice t-shirt here. 5 of them, add to cart, and then let's add another product as well. From the audio amplifiers category. View cart, checkout, tax calculated again up there in the right corner. And now you see the auto ship is actually enabled. You can actually see that if I click on it and scroll up, you can see the promotion of 25% get automatically calculated. I don't want to create a subscription or auto ship order. I just want to place a normal order. So go type in the address, saving it, and again typing in the credit card number. And there we go. Order has been received. So that was the checkout flow. So what components was actually used in this use case? So we had, of course, the storefront. Obviously, we have a commerce engine. We have some tax service. We have used the payment provider Stripe. And finally, you didn't see it, but you will see in the next use cases, we used an email to send out the order confirmation. Let's move on to the next use case, abandoned cart. So in this use case, we'll spend quite some time on both the email, but especially in the Zycor's CDP customer data platform. So that's the one you see here on the screen. So this is the one that we use to register all the events and also to trigger, to decide when to trigger an abandoned cart. Let's get started. So here we are at our PDP page. So as you can see, I opened the developer console, the left corner, and down here we can print out the ID, the browser ID. Any browser or client that accesses Zycor CDP get this ID assigned. So in Zycor CDP, we can now go ahead and look up what we know about this browser ID. And currently, as you can see, we identified up there in the top corner. We see we are visitor because we don't really know much. We don't have any email. We don't have much. And that's expected, right? So let's go back to our browser and try to register an account. Still in the same session, still with the same browser. Create a new account. enter the passwords, and I click sign up. Here we go, back to our CDP. We just refresh the page and you'll see up there, we are not visitor anymore, we are now identified as a customer. And you can also see on the event or the sessions that we have this guest identified. Now let's go ahead and add some products to the cart. Our t-shirt. So we're probably gonna add a couple of mini tripods. And also my favorite headphones. There we go, we have now added 3 products to the cart. So we can now cheat a bit, but before that we go back to CDP and we notice on the session details we can now see all the events happening, identify, and each of our 3 products that we added to the cart. Back to the browser, we now have a little trick. We don't want to wait until the session actually expires. We just call this JavaScript function and then it sort of simulates or cheat a bit there, so we close the session. If we now refresh in the CDP, you will now notice that it registered with almost $120 could have been there if this guy just placed the order, but he didn't. Instead, it triggered, we see if we refresh again now, it actually triggered because we configured it like that. It triggered an email sent out, an email session, when this happened that the session got abandoned. Let's see how that works. We have this, what we call in CDP, a web experience, a full stack web experience. First, you will see that we'll send out this email. This is how it looks like. This is our abandoned cart. Dear Roland, you forgot something awesome in your cart. Please come back. And of course, there's links to the website, the products, because we want to try to get this user back and place the order. So let's look at our web experience. This is how it looks like. There's this is a trigger-based one, and it's triggered by an abandoned cart event, and it's based on a decision model. Let's look at this decision model. So decision models can be built basically by drag and drop components onto this canvas. And based on what you need, of course, sometimes you need to do a little scripting. This is what we call it programmable. See here. Let's go look at briefly at the code in there. It's not a big thing, but it basically gets triggered when a user session get abandoned, and then we can run through and in the end trigger this connection. And this connection is then our middleware, so it's again independent. Like CDP doesn't know we use Smoothsend to send this out. Yeah, that's how that works. So what components was actually used here? First of all, again, obviously we use the storefront, we use the commerce engine, and we use the tag service. Of course, you saw that calculation. We also use the email service, and obviously a lot of Psycho CDP. Then let's move on to our third use case. A very simple example of integrating some content management. And here we use the XM Cloud. So you see here on our front page, we have simply just used the CMS to place some data on the front page, our company logo and a little text there. So let's go ahead and change this to a message to the user, because we actually had a case where somebody pulled in actual credit cards, and we don't want that. It's just a demo setup. We want users to test users to use the Stripe test credit cards instead. So let's remove the logo and quickly write as message, please don't use your actual credit cards, use the Stripe test cards instead. There we go, use those instead, accept it, and save it and publish it, and then we'll see that on the front page, like you would expect it to. There we go. So for this one, what was actually used? Not so much for this one, right? We used our storefront component, and of course we used XM and Experience Edge. So don't want to go into too much technology about that, but when you in Sitecore publishes here, it publishes to Sitecore's Experience Edge, which is an advanced CDN and query endpoint. We use GraphQL, and we use that in our storefront code to pull that data out. So let's get going with our fourth use case, the last use case. This is the subscriptions. This is basically, I would say, a must-have for any commerce business. I mean, anytime you can get people to place orders scheduled, it makes everything easy for planning and so on and so forth. So let's start. We are back to our storefront at the PDP page, and want to create a order that we can subscribe to. So first we build our cart, our t-shirt. There we go. And maybe just do a checkout with this. So you can see we are logged in, so we can get Ordership sign up for. We have an address, and we type in our credit card like we used to. But we sign up as an Ordership for this one. Let's see. Place the order. And nope, I'm not saving it to a browser. And now the order has been received. Now let's go ahead and look at our email. So before the subscription order gets triggered, every time it gets triggered, this was every week, you get this heads up email saying, hey, good stuff arriving soon, showing that you placed the order, but this is going to happen every week automatically if you choose to do so, and hit it. And you can see you can of course click on every link in the email to the products, to the store, back to the website, and so on and so forth. Now let's take a look how we build those emails. This is a Sitecore MoveSend. I'm just going to duplicate the campaign and email template used for it, so we don't mess the one up that's running. Let's go take a look at how we build those in this editor. It's basically what you expect to, but it's very, very, very easy to build up emails. Let's go to the editor. There we go. So the only thing that was sort of customized here was our merge tokens here. You can see the hashtag, first name hashtag. Right before said heads up Roland, good stuff will arrive soon. So you can see we have those for product name, product price, product image, brand, and links back to view the product, and so on and so forth. So in this editor, we can simply use this hashtag style wherever we want to put in some dynamic data from the specific order. So you can see we put the links, click on each element, and it's basically just drag and drop. You can see all the elements you have on the left as well. That's it, very easy to use. Now let's take a look at how we set up the promotions there. So you can see you get 5% on following, not the first one, you get 25, but the following orders with subscription, you get 5%. So this is how it looks in Order Cloud. In Order Cloud, each of these orders, they have what we call XP. XP is just data we can put in and use for whatever we want, not really related to the order. But we mark this first order as subscription and the subsequent orders as subscription_sub with true. Now, when we know that, then we can switch to where we define promotions in Order Cloud, and we can basically create a simple formula saying that if order subscription is true, evaluate the value expression with 0.05, which means like 5% in the discount. So it's easy, no code at all. It's purely configuration to do this. Let's look at the emails we got. So we have the alert email, order coming soon. And of course, we also have the order confirmation when the order was actually triggered by the subscription component and sent out this email. And you can see we actually got our discount of 5% automatically. That's it. So In this fourth use case, what components was actually used? Of course, again, we used the storefront. We used the commerce engine a bit more than previously use cases because we also used the promotions engine in the commerce. We use tax service. We have the payment provider Stripe. And as you saw, we used MoveSend as the email service, and you saw how we built up those emails and how they got triggered, right? So that was the last demo and use case we had. Let's move on to the agenda. So to some experiences and pros and cons of using composable commerce. Let's take the pros first. So first of all, that's the scalability. It's so easy. You don't need to know about it. It's out there in the cloud. So it's built natively cloud, all the components that they should be, otherwise you'd choose something else. So it's easy to scale. Close to zero administration because somebody else is doing it for you. Cost reduction because two things here, right? You only buy exactly what you need. Otherwise you should find something maybe with a little less features or a component where you don't enable those features in the component so you don't pay for them. And if you're following the whole strategy with composable, you don't do a lift and shift necessarily. So buy the components when you need them instead of what it has been used to for a lot of years. You buy the full-fledged system and then you start developing on it. And maybe after some years, you use 10% or 20% or 30%. So only buy what you need, but also when you need it. So again, what I mentioned just before, build and buy at your own speed. You get best of breed, faster time to market, faster implementation. This is really important. As a technical guy, I can absolutely testify this. Developer productivity is so much better. Doing the big old monolith system, you spend a lot of time on developing setup and having your local machine with all those products installed. Since all this is cloud-based and out there on APIs, you don't really need much on your own machine because the commerce engine, you don't need to install that because that's just an API, right? The tax service is there, the payment service is there, the email service is there. None of that is really anything you need locally. You only need the storefront, building, stuff like that. Very, very big difference. So you also have better data access. An example would that would be like we all have been in a situation where you need information in this database. Well, you can only do it because it's Thomas over there. He's the only one who have access to it, and he's not there this week. But the whole idea is everything here is only API driven. So there is access to all your data all the time through these APIs. So of course you need access to the APIs, but you're not dependent on that individual guy that have the access. Of course, there's also some cons here, right? You now have multiple different systems. They might look different. Terminology might be different. So yeah. Skills, same reason. You might need more skilled people, or maybe you need to train some people to learn the different systems. Functionality overload, yeah, this is what you should avoid, but you might end up in a situation where you buy two components to solve two different things, but they actually solve some of each other features as well. So there's going to be some overlap and you might pay for that. So be aware of that. You don't want that to happen, right? Data across multiple systems. You might need user data in multiple systems, which is redundant and can create some not so fun cases. So also something for the architects that put all the systems together. Monitoring and overview. Now we have multiple systems all running out there. How are you going to overview that and see what's wrong and what is not working? Luckily enough, most of these systems have API and components for dashboards. But again, you need to build up that dashboard to get that overview. So strong need for good architecture and downtime handling across roles. So of course, there's always a need for good software architecture and when you build a system. But just imagine the case I had before when I showed how it all was put together. You place an order in Order Cloud. Then you call Avalara for tax. Then you call Stripe, the payment provider, and then you send an email. What if one of these sort of connections or calls actually failed? What would you do? How can you roll back across multiple systems? What are you going to do? How are you going to retry? All those things. There's of course solutions to all this, but it's absolutely something that get even more exposed in the composable world. So First question we got was, what about new technologies? What if your company doesn't have the skills, or you need new skills on the team? Well, obvious question, right? So, two things about that. First of all, the whole MARC architecture and the sort of requirement that all these components are API driven. So these APIs are open APIs, meaning that you can use whatever technology you want to tie these components to compose your system and how they communicate. It can be C#, it can be Ruby on Rails, it can be Python, whatever you want and whatever you feel comfortable in doing and what you have as your company strategy on what development language you want to use. But all the APIs are sort of open standards, so they're not really programming language dependent. Then of course the front end, the front end thing. So if you want to build a modern JavaScript based front end, of course there's a lot of JavaScript, and then there's a lot of frameworks to use, whether it's React or Vue or whatever you want to use for it. But of course those can be the things that are biggest mover if you are a classic Microsoft.NET shop and have been using, for example, Sitecore. You probably feel most comfortable using C# and CHTML and all that stuff. So that's not something you'll be able to continue doing if you want to follow this in the right path. So in that case, you need to get some consultants helping you out, train your internal team if you have an internal team, or you want to do it really fast, then of course bring in a development partner that can help you with this and show you how it's done while you get your own team up to speed in a shared project or something like that. Then we also had another question on, do we have to rebuild anything moving to composable? Or do we need to do a lift and shift basically, or just move it slowly and easy? So again, depends on what your company strategy is. I mean, who want to do a lift and shift? That's tend to be a big project. The best possible way we see it is that try to do POCs from the areas from your current system, and you might be able to even have some of your current components expose those APIs so to be sort of following the MARC standard in some way, so you can start building up your composable setup one by one, again to avoid buying everything up front, and you might incur a lot of cost that going to take you 6 months to start actually using those components. So try to build a roadmap. Of course, you need to do the specification work and plan out that roadmap, but that's absolutely our recommendation. Take it step by step. I think that was it. So thank you so much for following along, and have a good day.